So we're going to do like a semi deep dive on this. Now I'm gonna say I enjoy Tobe's music like hands down. He is so creative, and he appears to love his wife and love his children and love his family. I also want to let you guys know from a psychological standpoint, the appearance of a man loving his wife, his children, and his family can also be signs of a communal narcissist. And this is not me saying that he is. There are a lot of men who get accolades via how they take care of their wives and their children based on public perception. And when you begin to listen to the core and the tenets by which he acclimated and he came in possession of or acquired his wife and his children, you'll begin to see that the very foundation by which he is and the infrastructure of which his family stands is not only contrary to the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, but is in direct opposition to nature. And the nature is that man seeks, man chases, man finds. When a woman seeks, when a woman chases, that means that that man is being penetrated by that woman from behind. That means that they have begun to switch masculine and feminine dynamics in the relationship, and this is contrary to nature. This is literally the fallen, the spirits, the disembodied spirits, which would be looked at as the original concept of demons, of the Nephilim, that continue to travel throughout the earth, and they begin to inhabit men and women, causing a split between the masculine and the feminine, and versus it being perfectly balanced out based off of its specific body and structure, it becomes conflated, and the man places himself on pedestal when the woman is that which should be sought after and is compared to as rubies, as wisdom. And when we begin to look at the Hebraic word Rechem, this means womb, and it is identical to Rakam, which is friend. Therefore, the womb of the woman becomes the friend of the Most High. Both of them are rooted in a word that means protection. When we begin to look at the womb of creation, Benai, or understanding, is the womb by which wisdom is processed. When we begin to look at wisdom, it begins to be called Chokmah in the Hebrew. Chaku is the name of the Most High in the Igbo pantheon, and we know that Tobe is an Igbo man. When we begin to break down the chi, it is big spirit in Igbo. This would be synonymous to the spirit that is at creation, which we begin to know is wisdom. And this is how you begin to break these things down. When you begin to look at Allah, or Ani in the Igbo, this is the feminine representation of holy ground, by which it is that Moses began to stand. And she is represented as being worshipped on top of the Igbo mounds, synonymous with the Ruach HaKodesh, synonymous with the Chokmah, which would be the feminine indwelling of wisdom at creation, now being presented to begin to rest above the Ark of the Covenant. So just based off of Tobe's upbringing as an Igbo man, he knows all of these tenets. This is part of their culture. He also knows how a woman is supposed to be handled and how a woman is supposed to be viewed. He knows the extensive nature of the courtship. He knows that this woman is supposed to be the wisdom that is personified to make a hedge of protection around his children, because wisdom is the light, which is going to be looked at as the very soul of man. And when you begin to look at wisdom, she is the law. So as a submissive wife, and there's a difference between submission and control, and submission and abuse, we begin to know that the woman who submits herself to the Most High, she is always going to be found, and she will position herself to be declared wife. There's a certain position, and the position is going to be rooted in bet, which is what you're going to see as the root of benai, but it's going to be the bending of the knee in prayer. When we begin to look at Ruth, and she bent at the feet of Boaz, she did not seek him, she did not chase him. She began to glean in his field, and he took notice of her, and he laid out extra provisions on her behalf. Therefore, she dropped her handkerchief. He provided provision. She followed the wisdom and the tutelage of her mother-in-law and sat at his feet. And before he ever went into her, he began to go to the next of kinsmen who would have been able to rightfully make her a wife before Boaz. He did not decide to humble her and take breaks. When we go into the fact that Tobe, and he calls her Fat, and now Fatty was one of my nicknames, but in a relationship, anyway, he called her Fat, right? And so he literally, and I'm not putting words in his mouth, they were friends, and she wanted him, and she wanted him bad, and he would literally call her sis. He said that he would call her family, that he would use all of the colloquialisms to let her know, I do not want you. He friend zoned her. And women, there are a lot of us who friend zone a man, and a lot of times you let that man out of the friend zone because nobody else wanted to wife you. Not because he was your first option, not because he was your first choice. It's because you had to settle by that which found you worthy of what you were seeking while you were out in the world. Because the men that you wanted to wife you did not qualify you to be as such. When we look at men like Tobe, he literally said, I wanted a relationship. I just did not want you. I have been with a man who had a woman like Fat who was chasing him since teenage years, and he did not want a relationship with her. He had ample opportunities to get in a relationship with her. He did not want that. She continued to be his go-to friend. And that's after he cut her off and after he disappeared. Fat literally said, if I would have taken his honesty and removed myself from his life. So she allowed herself to operate in the spirit of desperation to not only chase a man, but continue to try to be his friend and to be the one that he could call on and the one he could lean into so you could break him down. While he deals and finagle with other women knowing that you have feelings for him. And so while he was out doing whatever, keeping you in the tub because y'all not romantically involved, he literally said, let me go ahead and give this a try since you feel so strongly about me. Maybe I can grow to feel this way about you. Now, when my parents started talking, my mom didn't want anybody. It wasn't just specific that she didn't want my daddy. She was attracted to him. Didn't want him. Didn't want anybody at all. My father was on the pursuit for a wife. There's a difference between not wanting to be with anybody and not wanting specifically to be with that person because they not your type. You only view them as a friend. You only view them as sister. this, that, and other. Like, that's a list and a myriad of things. If my mother would have rejected my father's advances or even hand at friendship, he would not have continued to chase her, because that would have made him desperate as a man. After they created a friendship and he was in hot pursuit of a wife via seeking God and praying and going to his elders concerning it, then it began to shift into a courtship. So there are instances when, ladies, you should never be the one that's not, that's being rejected. Like, it's something behind it. And it's not even safe to take a guy out of the friend zone. Because a lot of times those going to be the guys that's really, really going to dog you out because you made him wait when he was telling you all along, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to present for. And so now the good guy ended up turning bad. But this isn't what happened here. She had a chance to not be his friend at all, because your friend is not going to allow you to sit back and to do for them, knowing that you're pining for them, knowing that you want them, knowing that you're just waiting your turn. Unless this is what you decide to do. But that friend should never be able to say, all right, come on, now it's your turn. No, this is where you put me, and this is where I am, and this is where I'll remain. And now we're just best friends. She lacked that. And a lot of women lack that. So when Tobe began to literally say he viewed her as Roger to his Tia and Tamira, and Urkel and Myra to his Laura. Those were his exact words describing his wife. And when he said that he finally gave her a chance, she literally stopped him and said, I'm going to stop you right there. Y'all don't do that. Men don't do that. If you know that this is not the woman that you want, just leave her alone, because then things would be said like, oh, we got to take a break. This is indicative of what would happen in their relationship. They would break up like every 6 months, and he would go out and mess with other people, date other people, and tell her, we just friends, so don't cock block, while keeping her in the back pocket. And this is what she allowed. So when we talk about how signs of pregnancy can be forms of abuse, we need to think of certain things, right? So when my mom was pregnant with me, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And unfortunately, she ended up having to have a hysterectomy after she had me. Now, if she had a husband that did not care about her health, he would have told her, you're going to have faith in God, because I want a son. Because my daddy wanted a son. He wanted more kids. And we've seen things like this happen. I'm a CNA. I've seen some crazy things. I've heard some crazy stories. Me, myself, as a woman, when I was engaged to be married, and I kind of don't even want to count that, because it didn't, I really don't want to count that, but I have to. When I was engaged to be married, and I had to have emergency gallbladder surgery because I was going to die within 24 hours, and then end up getting diagnosed with the cervical cancer. Mind you, my pregnancies were already hard. My labors, baby, I could have some babies. But my pregnancies were literally life-threatening to me. And I had told my mom, because, I wasn't dating. I was celibate before I got in this engagement. And I had told my mom, I was like, I will need to marry a man that would be okay if we couldn't or didn't have more kids, because that's how sick my pregnancies would make me, and that's the man that I would marry and have another kid for, because that would tell me that he honors my body, and he would understand that me risking my life is not worth that reward. My father, when they diagnosed my mama with cervical cancer, rightfully so, he wanted to save his wife. And that's exactly how he should feel, because they can reproduce another child. He couldn't get another Patricia Ann Holiday. So it's come to my attention that Fat has MS and multiple cirrhosis. A woman who used to be my best friend, she suffers from it as well. And as someone myself with fibromyalgia, they're very similar with the fatigue and with just certain skeletal and weakness and just different issues. She's been pregnant back to back. Beautiful family. Very aesthetically pleasing. And sometimes she's just tired, and she says this. So some of us women see this entire setup as alarming because we see deeper than the surface. And it's not because we go digging. It's because people places this on the forefront. And we feel sorry for women like Janae, who was married to Derek Jackson, not realizing that these marriages are one and the same. And it's not to say that Tobe's cheating now. We're not putting that on him. We're not saying that. Nothing, we're not saying that. The way that they got together and the way that they operated is very, very close to one another. The only difference is that Janae played tit for tat with him in some ways when they was in college. It's just that Black women have to be able to identify the spirit of desperation that we operate in. And just because your desperation does not look like another woman's desperation does not mean that you are desperate. And when we begin to say that men be married to women that they hate, that they do not like, that they settled for, who are not their first choices, these are indeed facts. The gentleman that I mentioned earlier who ended up married to a woman that chased him since we were in high school, she wasn't even his second choice or his third choice to be married to. This is why I'm so, and I specifically asked men, because I don't typically end up talking to men with kids. It's just not something that happened a whole bunch. I asked men if they have a baby mom or an ex or something that they would, if they could be with, would they be with them? And if it is, who is it and what's stopping it? Because I want to know if it's something that's repairable, because that's going to let me know where your heart truly lies. So this also goes into when men have an ex that they act like they hate and they just got all this venom and all this. There's a podcast when a man said that within his marriage, his wife had to let him know, I feel as if another woman is present because the mother of your child has too much control over your emotions. And he had to admit to himself that there was a hold that she had on him. So there are many ways as women that we end up dishonoring ourselves, and we end up in long-term relationships or marriages or pregnancies back to back that's not conducive to our health. Your body needs a year to heal after pregnancy, a year to heal after major surgery. It has to recuperate. Your cells have to rebuild. Your muscles have to rebuild. Your organs have to shift. Like your body has to come back into itself. We are supposed to be fruitful and multiply within wisdom. And a whole bunch of kids at times, not all the times, it can be a sign of uncontrolled lust. And when you begin to see men like Tobe, who are clearly believe in being fruitful and multiplying, and he was still sowing his royal oats while dealing with fats off and on, he has an insatiability about his loins. And that's because they are not fully girded in truth through the wisdom of a woman. Because if he truly honored a woman, he wouldn't did Fat the way that he did her. And somebody somewhere dropped her in her understanding, and she's actually sounding the alarms to women, well, to men, and telling men don't play with women like that. She should be telling women this. Because, yeah, too many of us are delusional. This is Chokmah.